Welcome to the Register's Report. My name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County, and this show is about Plymouth County real estate. We're going to talk a little bit about the numbers for the previous month. This show is taped in July. We'll be reporting on the June numbers. We have a great guest in the second segment of the show, Steve Amico, Vice President of Coastal Heritage Bank in charge of residential lending, and a little bit of our Plymouth County history. So our headline for the month was mid-year and fiscal year closes with a bang. And that moves us right to the numbers. Starting with deeds. Deeds are sales of property. You're going to see a bar chart of deeds. There were 1,295 deeds recorded in June, more than 966 in May, up 1% from last June. For the first 6 months of calendar year 2018, they've been about stable, although we did have a real good end to the fiscal year. The next image you're going to see is of mortgages. There were 1,923 mortgages recorded in June, more than the 1,735 in May, down 5% compared to last June. A lot of people that have refinanced have stopped refinancing. So for the first 6 months of this year, based upon that, our mortgage recordings are down 7%. People are still taking out mortgages to purchase property, but not necessarily refinances. The next image you're going to see is of foreclosure deeds. A foreclosure deed is when a property is taken back by the lender. There were 67 foreclosure deeds recorded in June, more than the 48 in May, 31% higher than last June. But for the first 6 months of calendar year 18, 11% lower than last year. The next image you're going to see is of foreclosure notices. A foreclosure notice is the first document we see in the chain of title that shows someone's in difficulty. There were 65 foreclosure notices recorded in June, down from the 85 in May, 22% less than last June, and it's up 1% over the first 6 months. And then you're going to see a listing of foreclosures and orders of notice for all 27 communities in Plymouth County. Brockton, Plymouth, and Wareham have been communities that have had the most difficulty, but it happens everywhere. I want to talk a little bit about our training room. Our next free training session at the Registry of Deeds in Plymouth is on Thursday, August 2nd. Please sign up in advance. We have 8 spots. It's a hands-on training by our IT department. You can efficiently search our site. There's also a property fraud alert that you can connect with on our website. And my guest in the next segment is Steve Amico, who is the Vice President for Coastal Heritage Bank of Residential Lending, and he'll be talking about the current status of residential loans. So we'll see you in the next segment.
They told me a bottle couldn't dream, that I would never become a superhero. But I learned how to fly, just to come back in a new disguise and be the hero that I've always wanted to be.
Welcome back to the Register's Report. Again, my name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. In this segment of the show, we always try to do something educational in nature. We've had many realtors, we've had appraisers, assessors, and many people involved in the real estate community. I have a great guest today, Steve Amico, who is a Vice President for Coastal Heritage Bank involved in residential lending. So thank you again for coming on the show.
John, thanks for having me.
Always great to see you.
Thank you, sir.
So how have things been for you this summer so far?
Things have been pretty busy.
Yeah.
The real estate market is pretty active. A lot of purchases going on, and surprisingly enough, a lot of home equities still hitting the books.
Yeah, we're seeing pretty good numbers.
Yeah, it's a very competitive market out there right now. A lot of the purchasers are actually getting into bidding wars because there's a lack of inventory for the lower priced homes. So we're seeing a lot of bidding wars.
So why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about how you got into this area of work?
Well, I've been in banking for probably 34 years now. I hate to admit it. Started off in collections, moved into residential lending, and have been there ever since. I really love it. It's an opportunity to help people fulfill their dreams of home ownership.
And can you tell our viewers a little bit about Coastal Heritage Bank?
Sure. Coastal Heritage Bank actually became in existence as of December 7th, 2015, when Situate Federal Savings Bank and S-Bank merged, and we became Coastal Heritage Bank. We're just under a $500 million bank, maybe a little over a $500 million bank now, and we have 7 offices. We have offices in Quincy, East Bridgewater, Hanover, Norwell, Hingham, Situate, Marshfield, and Green Harbor.
Wow.
And Weymouth.
Cover a lot of Plymouth County.
Yeah, and Weymouth is our main office.
Great. So let's talk a little bit about where we've been in real estate generally, based upon the mortgage changes. The Federal Reserve has bumped rates a couple times. Clearly, it hasn't put a damper on the real estate market. It's been very strong. So how have you seen the adjustments in rates affecting the whole package?
Well, it's funny because the mortgage rates really haven't been affected by the jumps in the Fed raising the discount rate. Most of the rate bumps that you've seen have been on the home equity lines of credit and credit cards. So that's been effective more than on the mortgage side. It did see a little bit of a bump up, I'm going to say February, March, in that area, but then it's kind of leveled back off again and really came back down again. I think the high was almost at 5%, which really isn't that high, but it was, the high came up to 5% and it's back down to about 4.625 as of today.
So how do you get most of your customers?
Most of our customers are local. We have a lot of referrals from past customers because they really enjoy doing business with the bank. We hold all of our mortgages in-house. That doesn't mean that we don't sell some of the mortgages. We do. We just do not sell the servicing. So we always service our own customers. So, when customers have an issue, they don't have to call someone in East Oshkosh, somewhere in California or Nevada or whatever. They can call a local bank and talk to someone locally and still continue to make their payments locally.
So if somebody out there is looking at this show and they're looking at the possibility of taking out a loan to purchase a house, how would they get started with you? And I will back that up by saying there aren't any realtors that many times that will even talk to anyone unless they're pre-qualified.
Exactly. So, there's a number of ways that they can get a hold of us. They can call our regular telephone number, and we can set an appointment up with. Do you mind sharing some of the numbers? We have our main number is 800-695-1300. My telephone number, my direct line is 781-796-6125, or certainly they can always try my cell phone, which is with me all the time, which is 617-529-8444. They can email me at samico@coastalheritagebank.com. Or they could visit any one of our offices, and they could find one of the offices, one of the loan offices they'd give a call to. Or you could find us on the web at coastalheritagebank.com, and we have a very easy application you can apply online. If you're doing it as a pre-approval, though, it's going to ask you for an address, so you're probably going to have to call a loan officer. And we do have 3 loan offices, including myself, that are at the bank.
Great. So what would someone do to prepare themselves in advance so it's a smoother process?
One of the things that they should be doing is not going out and taking credit cards or applying for loans anywhere. One of the most important things...
How far back?
I would say maybe the last 4 or 5 months. Just
Okay.
don't go out there and apply for it because it's going to show up in the credit report
Okay.
that they've, and we're just going to need an explanation if they hadn't received any kind of credit.
Okay.
One of the other most important things is a lot of the banks or a lot of the people that are on the internet right now will not give you an interest rate unless you put your social security number and date of birth in. Well, as soon as you do that, they're running a credit report on you. So what I would recommend to anyone out there that's rate shopping, if they are looking for a pre-approval, if they're looking for interest rates, and they can't get it by just looking it up on the internet or making a phone call without someone asking them for their social security number and date of birth, don't give it to them. You know, make sure that you're able to get an interest rate or be able to talk to someone about what's going on, because every time you give your social security number out, somebody is doing a credit report on you, and it's affecting your credit score. It's bringing it down because the credit bureaus don't know whether you're getting turned down at all these places or whether you're just shopping. Similar to going to buy a car. You know, they do a generic loan application and send it out to 15 banks and get whatever the best rate is for them and for you, but you have several inquiries on there. So try to keep the inquiries down to a minimum.
That's a pretty significant recommendation.
Yeah, you know, it's something that they really need to consider because, you know, I see it all the time where people are, you know, they've been to several banks looking for pre-approvals. And my recommendation to them is if you have a pre-approval from one bank, don't go for a pre-approval from another bank or another lender. Once you find a house, now you can actually shop rate. Because remember, when you're doing a pre-approval, you're not really shopping interest rate. All you want is that letter that says, I can buy a house and this is what I can afford. Versus, you know, now once you find the house, you have the purchase and sales signed, now you want to really get serious on what is the interest rate that I'm getting and how am I going to get to that.
Yeah, the change over the years, from my perspective, even having practiced years ago, of absolute requirement of a pre-approval letter is really ramped up a lot. You know?
Yeah, and it depends because a lot of them will accept the pre-approval letter. Some of them will accept a pre-qualification letter. I've had a lot of customers call me up and say, you know, past customers, Steve, I need a pre-qualification letter right away. Can we do it? I know their credit, I know their past, I know their history, and yeah, we can certainly do a pre-qualification letter for them right away.
So once they've made the initial contact with you or one of your coworkers, what are the typical documents that they'd be required to bring forward?
Great question. The documents that they're going to have to start to gather is 2 months bank statements, 2 years federal tax returns with their W-2s. They're also going to need to get a month's worth of pay stubs. So, you know, if they get paid weekly, it'll be 4 pay stubs, bi-weekly 2, monthly 1. Most important thing is if they're renting, though, we'll need to get information on their landlord and possibly copies of their checks or a transaction. You know, sometimes they do it with Venmo and automatic direct withdrawal.
Sure.
We need to get a payment record of their rentals because that is our only way of knowing how they've made their payments on their rental properties. If they're selling a property, we'd like to see a copy of the purchase and sales agreement, should they have one on the property that they're selling, because a lot of times, most of the time, they're getting the money for their down payment from the property that they're selling. And we need to see that. And the other important thing is we need to see where all the funds are coming from, whether it's a gift or whatever, and we'd have to do a gift letter if they're doing a gift.
So one of the things we always talk about with realtors and others are the delayed entry into the marketplace for first-time home buyers, younger millennial individuals, they're so-called. How do you see that going right now, and how do you see that working in the future?
We've been very fortunate to offer a very good first-time homebuyer program, which basically takes 0.25% off our existing rate, plus giving them discounted closing costs for our lending area, which is basically all of Plymouth County and part of Norfolk County. So we do have a very good program, but we've also seen it's very competitive. Like I said earlier, there's a lot of bidding going on for the lower price housing, but we've been very fortunate that a lot of our customers have been able to win over some properties. As I was discussing with you, I'm very proud that both of my girls were able to this year purchase a
that's
property.
great. Yeah.
Just came from a closing
One in
with
Plymouth County.
One in Plymouth County, one in Norfolk County. Just came from a closing just now from my other daughter, just
great.
getting her house. So I mean, and it's very competitive because my daughter who bought in Plymouth County, there were several offers on the property, and the buyer did choose her. And my daughter, who just bought up in Norfolk County, was actually looking in the Boston, West Roxbury area, which is even more competitive than down here, where properties are selling for $25,000 and $30,000 over what their actual list prices are, or the asking price was.
It's incredible out there with the lack of inventory.
It is. I mean, some of them are 400 square foot condos selling for. They originally started at 215 and they're selling for 240, 250, 260. It's crazy.
So I read an article, speaking of millennials, everyone's kind of aware that student loan debt has had an impact on purchasing your first home. And there was in the article, they mentioned that because younger people are getting more and more education, they're delaying those decisions.
Yeah, what's happening is we're seeing it a lot, where people are coming out with master's degrees and things like that, and they're coming out with, $100,000 plus in student loan debt. I had a veterinarian come to me for a mortgage. We ended up giving it to him, but $360,000 in student loan debt.
Wow.
I mean, that's a mortgage in itself.
Wow.
And it's phenomenal what they're coming out with. But there's some programs out there that the student loan debt isn't counted as heavily against them. So there are programs out there for them. And there's also refinance programs with some of this student loan debt to bring it down. It extends it out, but there are some programs out there.
So one of the things we track at the registry, basically since the crisis of 2008, are foreclosures. Now, when people are foreclosed and they're basically, the title is shifted to the lender, many times those individuals' situation changes and they'd like to get back into home ownership. How are those circumstances handled?
Well,
I know there's a period of time that has to go by.
It does take a couple of years for them to get back, but they do have to reestablish themselves.
Okay.
The other part of it is at the time of foreclosure, was there a deficiency?
Sure.
And are they still responsible for some of the deficiencies? Because there's two different types of, basically a foreclosure, there's a deed in lieu,
Right.
and there's also a short sale.
Right.
And if it's done on a short sale, then the bank is actually forgiving any of the shortfall of the sale. If it's a foreclosure, then there could be a shortfall, and they're still responsible for any deficiency. And the same thing with a deed in lieu. 99% of the time on a deed in lieu, where there's no attorney fees and things like that are involved, they most likely forgive any kind of other debt that's outstanding.
So what kind of things do you think those people could do, assuming they're not stuck with that extra $50,000 that they owe? How do they prepare themselves financially? What steps can they take to make themselves better able to get a loan?
Sure. Well, they need to reestablish their credit, because most of the time their credit has been tarnished. So they need to at least 2 years reestablished with a very good payment record. A lot of times that means getting a credit card that may be a guaranteed credit card, where they have to put $300 into the bank, and the bank holds that money, and they give them a credit card with a $300 limit. Once they get established and they get themselves reestablished with either credit cards or an auto loan, or something that they have tangible, then they can start looking at properties again. Usually it's about 2 to 3 years. But it's very important for them to get themselves reestablished and get back up. Don't declare bankruptcy, don't have any of those major issues like that, and it shouldn't be an issue.
And if they do declare bankruptcy, how does that affect
It depends
your
on-
options down the road?
Depends on what kind of bankruptcy it is,
Sure.
13-7. However they declared it, it's all going to depend on the number of years that they have to be out of bankruptcy from that.
So just a quick view on where you think the market's going to go through the end of the calendar year?
It seems as though the market itself has held its ground. I think it's going to continue to be, between the 4.625, and this is on a 30-year fix, 4.625 to 4.875 interest rate mark. I think you're going to see, right now you're seeing a little bit of a lull because people aren't really buying right now. I think you're going to see it come back in late August, early September. It's just the problem that we're having right now is just a lack of inventory out there for people. There's a lot of buyers out there. We have a lot of pre-approvals out there. It's a matter of them finding a home, and there's not a lot of inventory out there.
So can you share your contact information one more time with our viewers?
Absolutely. If anyone would like to get a hold of me, it's Steve Amico, Coastal Heritage Bank. Telephone number is 781-796-6125, or my cell, 617-529-8444. You can also reach me via email at samico@coastalheritagebank.com.
Great. Well, thank you again.
Thank you very much, John.
For joining the show. It goes
Appreciate
fast.
it. It does.
That's
Thank you. I appreciate it. We've done a couple of shows together, and this is fantastic.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Listen, you're my friend.
I noticed you haven't really been yourself recently.
Yeah, I feel like something's up.
How are you?
Are you okay?
Is there anything you want to talk about?
I just want to know how you're feeling.
And listen, even if you don't know what to say, I'm here to talk.
No matter what you're going through,
I just want you to know I'm here.
I've got your back.
when you want to talk, I'm here.
I want to thank Steve Amico for the great job he did describing what's going on out there in the mortgage market. He's obviously a very knowledgeable individual, and we're lucky to have him share all that information. This segment of the show, we always do something lighter in nature, talk about some of our Plymouth County history, a couple holidays. In the month of July is 4th of July, which has gone by, National Ice Cream Day, which was on the 15th, and holiday very recent was National Ice Cream Beach Day, which many people celebrate. Last month we talked about Plymouth County's lighthouses. This month we're talking about a few of our beautiful beaches. First we're going to talk about Whitehorse Beach. Whitehorse Beach is in Plymouth, down in Manomet, and is a wonderful location along the Atlantic Ocean. It also has a small business district nearby with a post office, a general store. In offshore, when you look off the beach, you'll see Flag Rock, which is painted every year with an American flag for the 4th of July, is adjacent to Priscilla Beach and the Priscilla Beach Theater. Local legend tells about a young woman named Helen who was prohibited by her father from marrying a young sailor she had fallen in love with. The father didn't like that and basically canceled the romance. Helen was distraught. She rode a white horse into the surf and was never seen again. The story of Helen and her white horse has been passed down for generations, and they say on a foggy night you might see Helen through the fog. The next beach is Gray's Beach Park in Kingston, one of Kingston's best-loved public spaces. The 6.5-acre Gray's Beach Park offers shady and sunny open space, tennis courts and basketball hoops, and public access to the beach. It was named after Edward Gray, who arrived in the New World in 1643. It was one of the area's wealthiest men at the time of his death in 1681. And he also was very involved in Kingston's shipbuilding past. Delano's Wharf remains now a private residence in that area. In 1636, town officials looked in a way to provide residents with better access to the waterfront. And over the years, the town boards have been very involved in upgrading that area, and it remains a favorite of town residents and visitors. And last but not least, Duxbury Beach. Duxbury Beach is a beautiful white sand beach, a 6-mile-long barrier beach owned by the Duxbury Beach Reservation, a nonprofit trust. It is a unique and ever-shaping natural resource on the Atlantic coast. You can get there by traveling over the wooden Powder Point Bridge, built originally in 1892, or through Gurnett Road. It serves as a recreational, scenic conservation area and a natural breakwater for the towns of Duxbury, Kingston, Plymouth, and Duxbury Beach and its salt marshes offer homes to countless species of wildlife. It's a great place to visit, and many people go there during these wonderful summer months. Through the continuing vigilance of this present owner, it continues to be one of Plymouth County's most notable places. I want to thank David Antoine and the folks here at PAC TV for allowing us to do this show. Lorna Green Baker from my office, along with Christine Richards, helps me put it together. And together we share this information about Plymouth County real estate, which for most people is their most valuable asset. And I'll see you next month. Have a great continuation of the summer.